just a big glass of water because we're talking about some cactus blooms today. I'm just gonna move this agave because I know that I'm gonna be, ow, see, I did it just then. I'm gonna be moving my hands around in excitement. Cactus blooms. Cactus blooms are among the most intriguing, enchanting, captivating wonders of the plant world. At least that's what I think anyway. The flowers are so vibrant and delicate, and they stand in stark contrast to the heavy, statue-like, prickly forms of the cacti themselves. And there's something almost magical about seeing them emerge from these plants that are associated with harsh, dry landscapes. These blooms are fleeting, they only appear for a short period of time, which just makes witnessing them even more special. Today, I'm taking you through the cacti that have been blooming in my garden this growing season, because let's be real, seeing your cactus flower is one of the most rewarding parts of having them, and I will share with you what I do to encourage those blooms to come out. Just gonna rip it out. Where's my spade? Who comes up with these colors? It had another bloom here which opened up for about a day and then was destroyed by the rain. But luckily there's a second one. We don't know what this cactus is, but we do know it's got a pretty bloom. These two here as well. Oh, I've forgotten the name of this cactus. This one reminds me of like fruity ice cream. This is a Copiapoa. That's pretty fun. So why do cacti even bloom in the first place? Just like any other plant, it is all about attracting pollinators. By doing that, they can reproduce and keep their lineage going. It's basically nature's way of making sure that the plant keeps thriving and surviving. These plants originate from tough conditions where every ounce of energy counts, so the flowers need to get the job done right. The bright colors, the unique shapes, even the time that they choose to bloom, all of this it's part of like a bigger plan, so to speak. For example, some cacti bloom at night with pale white petals to catch the attention of nocturnal pollinators like bats and moths and beetles. Others have daytime bursts of color that attract bees. The cactus gets pollinated and the pollinator gets a nice snack. It's win-win. So when do cactus decide that it's showtime? When do they bloom? Well, most cacti need a good sleep in order to build up the energy to bloom, which means they usually go through a dormant period. Typically, this happens over winter. If anyone wants to know what that bird is, the one that sounds like it's dying, that one? It's an Australian raven. As spring rolls round and the temperatures start to climb, that's when a cactus starts waking up and gets ready to put on a show. Spring is prime time for cactus blooms, so that's probably when you'll see the most action. But here's a little twist. Not all cacti will handle extreme heat well, and some will actually go dormant in the height of summer, especially in the hotter parts of the world. So yes, they'll take a little summer siesta when the sun is at its hottest. This means that for some cacti, a second comeback also happens in early autumn. So that's the first thing. It needs to go through a dormant period. Unless it's a Rhipsalis or an epiphyllum. Those apparently don't need to go dormant to produce flowers. I have one dead Rhipsalis, so my experience is limited. Most of my cacti are outdoors, so I can't and shan't be trying to induce dormancy. That was a pretty bird call. If you're keeping cacti indoors where there's not much variation in temperature throughout the year, and you're thinking about inducing a dormancy and wake-up period, that is someone else's channel. I have zero experience with getting an indoor cactus to flower. From my understanding, you can do it with grow lights and things. Some of you indoor cactus people might need to weigh in the comments. From what I've read, trying to force them to wake up out of season can actually weaken the cactus over time. It just means it becomes more vulnerable to things like stress and pest and disease. But maybe I'm wrong. You can try it. I think seasonal cycles are good, but I'm blessed with the climate for it. And you know, I can just leave the cactus to do what they do. By the way, I recently learned that saying cacti and cactuses as plural for cactus is both correct. And here I was making sure I always said cacti, but everyone's right. There you go. You learn something new every day. Fertilizer. We like to give our cacti a little boost with some fertilizer in early spring. It lets them know that it's time to get growing and hopefully start showing off some flowers. We've noticed that a fertilizing routine really makes a difference, and our cacti have been extra generous with their blooms this year. I mean, we also have more plants now than we did this time last year, but I'm convinced that the spring feeding plays a big part in the flower show. We have been using power feed, and we've also just tried a tomato and veggie fertilizer. I've said this in heaps of other videos. When we fertilize, we'll do like this triple threat mix of sea salt, go-go juice, and the fertilizer of our choice. It'll be 10 mils of sea salt, 10 mils of go-go juice, 10 mils of fertilizer, all diluted in 9 liters of water. Sea salt and go-go juice are kind of like tonics and soil conditioners, and I'll actually use them with almost every watering. Not all, but most waterings. But the fertilizers will just be for the beginning of spring and summer. Okay, fertilizers and blooms. To oversimplify things a lot, you'll have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium as the main components of fertilizers. For blooms specifically, the phosphorus and the potassium is what you need to be paying attention to. Phosphorus is what helps stimulate flower formation, and potassium improves the quality and longevity of the blooms. And I'll bet you'll want to encourage and extend the bloom time for as long as possible, because as we know, cactus blooms don't last that long. If your goal is blooms, a fertilizer that is lower in nitrogen and higher in phosphorus and potassium is probably what you want. Like a 1-1-1 or a 5-10-10 ratio. There's a lot of numbers when it comes to fertilizers, and it kind of does my head in. Now, did we use a bloom-specific fertilizer this season? Not really, and we still got a bountiful amount of blooms this spring. This is what we used, power feed, and the percentages are nitrogen 12%, phosphorus 1.4%, and potassium 7%. So this would probably be considered a little high on the nitrogen side, but we use this at a much lower dose than what you would for other plants, and we only use this during growing season. If you do that, I think you should be fine. Why do fertilizer bottles always just... Look, you'll get lots of different people saying lots of different things about the nitrogen content of fertilizers for cacti, and that can be another video. When we were researching, we found a lot of companies and professional growers recommending to use this stuff at half strength or less for cacti. If you think this amount of nitrogen is too high and you don't want to take the risk with it, that's fine. I'm not going to come to your house and make you use it. Obviously, lots of different cactus people have their own routines and advice. Do what you think is best. We're all adults here. This tomato fertilizer, we also use this on some of the cacti, and this looks to be a little bit more balanced. The nitrogen is at 2.79%, phosphorus is at 1.06%, and potassium is at 2.69%. And I guess that's because with tomato production, you're kind of looking for something that'll support fruit rather than foliage. Nitrogen is the thing that supports foliage, leafiness, green. And something like this would probably be better for blooms if that's your main goal during growing season. I also use power feed because some of my cacti are mixed in with Australian native plants, and Australian natives supposedly don't like much phosphorus. See here it says all purpose including natives. But then I'll go to a website that'll be like the majority of Australian plants aren't actually phosphorus sensitive. Like honestly, it really feels like the information changes depending on what page you read. Cactus blooms, they are short-lived. They do not stick around for long, so make sure you're paying attention because they will not wait around for you. Most of them will open with the morning sun and then close back up with mid to late afternoon, and they'll keep this cycle going for just a few days and then the show is over. So for example, these Echinocereus rainbow cacti, these ones in the corner here, they bloomed just like that. They would open up with the morning sun and then close up again in the evening, repeating this whole process for a couple of days. And thank goodness it lasts a couple of days because I'm not always home to catch it. I also think I've been pronouncing some of the names wrong. I say cereus and then I will say trichocereus when it should be trichocereus. Same with Echinocereus when it should be Echinocereus. Don't even get me started on trying to pronounce botanical names. Mammillarias are also daytime bloomers. Alcopia poa are also daytime bloomers. And then there are the night bloomers. Oh, the night bloomers. There is something almost magical and otherworldly about these cacti that save their grand reveal for after dark. And it is such an event to go out into the garden and sit with a night blooming cactus that has decided to flower. I don't know, it's like a secret show or a secret meeting. It's like I'm a witch or something. The night blooming cacti that I have include Trichocereus spacianus. I have to get into the habit of saying spacianus because I've been saying spacianus, and let's be honest, I'm basically 5 and I can't say spacianus with a straight face. And then there's the cereus family, and I'm pretty sure all cereus species are night bloomers, or at least most of them. Actually, let me just check before I get accused of misinformation. Are all cereus cacti night bloomers? Internet says yes. All cereus species bloom at night and are terrestrial plants. Terrestrial just means that they grow on land. Oh my god, I look so tired and shiny. It's about 9:30 p.m. and I am out here because we have some bloomers, you guys. The Trichoceros bachianus bloomed and our cereus blue bloomed as well. This is the second time I've seen this bachianus bloom. I think it did bloom in April last year. No, it bloomed in September last year, I'm pretty sure. But this is the first time that the cereus has bloomed for us, so I'm having a beer. I'm always confused as to whether the cereus blue is called the queen of the night. I don't even know if the footage is going to be any good, but I'm capturing this now because I know that the blooms will be gone by the morning. Anyway, I've got footage on this camera. It's not a very good night vision camera, so I've also got some pictures on my phone, just in case. Like, even the back of the flower looks freaking amazing. Oh. I remember the first or second time the Spachianus bloomed, the flowers started drooping almost immediately when the morning sun hit them directly. So this year I tried a little experiment. I actually moved the plant into the shade under the arbor, and guess what? The blooms stayed vibrant and open right up until the afternoon sun found them. It's about 5:30 in the afternoon and these are just on their way out now. I'm surprised that they lasted this long. Honestly, I think it's got something to do with being in the shade. This one's fully closed back up again and that was it. That was the show. So if you want to stretch out the blooming time, because I don't know, you might be at work all day or you want more time to get some good photos, a bit of morning shade does the trick. And if you can't move the plant, maybe an umbrella? What are the cacti that have lots of blooms? If you go to a proper cactus garden, all cacti will have lots of blooms. The columnar cacti in my garden will probably shoot off 1 to 2 blooms, max 3 per season. Actually, our really big Parodia Lenninghausii, that's a columnar cactus, that goes off. But it is fairly established and there's lots of like stems, columns, whatever you call it. Columnar just means like it's a column cactus. But if the cactus is in the ground and it's well established, it's going to go off. But for most of us city or suburban gardeners, we may not be so lucky. I think for us, Mammillarias and Rubutias are the champions of blooms. You'll get loads of little flowers over the course of their blooming season. At any given time, you'll see a bunch of them on the plant. It's like a constant flower show. This one here has been flowering abundantly for a few weeks now. I am absolutely besotted with the colour. I've found that mammies and Rubutias will pretty much flower right out of the shop, provided that it's spring. I mean, you don't really need to wait too much longer for it to reach maturity. Tim saw a mammillaria in Woolworths the other day that was flowering. Woolworths is a big chain supermarket here, and he was like, indoors, really? Mammies and Rubutias are also really small, Rubutias especially, and are good if you don't have a lot of space or are keeping plants in small pots. Like this. Now, on the other hand, my fence post cacti are a little bit different. This one has completely finished blooming, all the buds have dropped off. In fact, let me just get this little done. And this one here just luckily had a flower blooming today and a second one here. I think this bud here might be the last one that still needs to open. From what I've seen this spring, and keep in mind that these fence posts are pretty new to this garden, but from what I've seen, they're all about producing a lot of buds, but the blooms will pop up at different times. And they are tiny. They are tiny, tiny, tiny. Honestly, I was hoping for this big dramatic display with a ton of flowers at once, but that's not really the vibe with these guys. Despite the many buds, I feel like the most amount of flowers I've seen open at once is about 4. And I'm pretty sure there were about 30 buds on each of the cacti over the course of the spring. I would also say that these blooms are definitely the shortest lived of them all. They'll open up first thing in the morning and a few hours later they'll already start to close up. Like this one is already on its way out. Seriously, blink and you will miss them. Oh, and just a note, cactus blooms will not do well in rain. If they've opened up in the morning and it starts to rain, they'll just close back up again and that'll pretty much be the end of that bloom. All right, it's been raining for days. Tim's brought all of the cacti that he can, the ones that are currently flowering. He's brought them all onto this table underneath the shelter. This copiopoa, focus, 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 focus. This copiopoa looks like it could still have another chance. It did open once, but I think it could still open again. I don't know, we're gonna wait and see. This one could still open, might be on its way out, but it does have 2 buds here. That's something to look forward to. Wait, what is this called? It is an Acanthocalcium australis. We got it from Roraima Nursery. 3 blooms, apricot coloured, never opened. We think that it was trying to, but there was no sun, so it kind of couldn't. And now it looks like it's very much on its way out, which I'm disappointed with. I don't know. If it's sunny tomorrow, hopefully it'll open up, but if it's not, this may be on its way out. And it didn't even open. I didn't get to see it. This one, I've forgotten the name, but it's super common. This one hasn't opened up yet. Could possibly be a night bloomer, but I might be assuming that because of the shape of the bud, bloom, arm, whatever you want to call this. We'll keep an eye on this one. I'll have to show footage in a future video if it doesn't happen in the next 24 hours. Right, this. Echinocereus, something or other. It's a rainbow cactus. I know Echinocereus rigidissimus or something like that. I know that to be one of the names of the rainbow cacti, but I think there's actually a few. Names. This might have been another one that tried to, oh no, oh. Whoops, I totally forgot. It's a cutting and it barely has any roots. Look at that. And it's still flowering. Oops. How? We'll wait and see. I'm hoping that this one still blooms. If not, we do have another one here. And the other rainbow cactus in the big Talavera pot, that's totally on its way out now. So I'll be watching this one. All right, let's talk about Cactus Country. I love talking about Cactus Country. Cactus Country is this incredible cactus garden in regional Victoria, and their blooming season typically runs from October to November. We've been there about 3 or 4 times now and have only ever visited in December because it's en route to visiting Tim's mum for Christmas. And we've still seen some plants bloom at that time, which is pretty cool. But if you want to catch the main show, October and November are definitely the months to go. Right now, it's mid-November and their Instagram has been blowing up with photos of their cacti in full bloom. It's like massive waves of flowers all at once and it looks so magnificent. If you're not following them on Instagram yet, what are you doing? Get onto it because you're missing out. And if you live in Australia and you're a cactus enthusiast, make sure you visit. Treat yourself. It's totally worth it. Okay, cross-pollination. I've never tried cross-pollinating myself, but I know that Jim, the owner of Cactus Country, he does a lot of hybrid work. He's got some really cool stuff going on over there. So again, follow Cactus Country on Instagram. Cross-pollinating can be awesome if you want to combine different features from different cactus species. Plus, you'll get a range of different color flowers in the hybrids. There are so many stunning, colorful blooms at Cactus Country. I don't know why I'm not there now. Actually, I think that Jim Hall, the owner, did a video on how to cross-pollinate. I'll link it below. As for me, I don't think I'm going to dive into that whole thing. I don't think cross-pollination is for me. Garden design is more my thing rather than getting into, like making hybrids. But you never know. I'll never say never. But if you're into it, good luck. I wish you all the best. Oh my gosh, this one is so exciting. This is the Ortegocactus mcdougalii. That is freaking pretty. Look at those colors. Well, look who finally decided to show up and show off. I guess this is kind of the second flush of blooms on this rainbow cactus. Why are some of my cacti not blooming, you may ask? I ask that question all the time. Honestly, I don't know. It can be tricky. Sometimes it's because the cactus are just too young and they haven't reached the right level of maturity yet. Look, patience is key. Sometimes they just need more time to get there. For example, none of my Opuntia cacti have bloomed. Not once. And honestly, it's kind of frustrating because that is the one variety I am so excited to see flower. I have been waiting for ages. I've got a picture of them as my phone background, like most people would have a picture of their partner. So yeah, definitely ready when you are, anytime. All right, it's almost 7 at night and it's getting dark. I hope you learned something new, or at the very least just enjoyed seeing our cactus blooms. We've still got a few cacti that have buds waiting to bloom, so if you want to be kept up to date with that, you know what button to hit. All right, have a good one and I will see you in the next video. Bye.